canvas, because that's where your grading happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so whatever mark you get will be out of that 80. So if that is not correct, then obviously your percentage would be incorrect. Although think I actually, I think I actually, I think I actually set it to be a percentage and not the mark to avoid the possibility of that happening. But if it is the case, I'll check after the period is done, and then I'll just upload a new one.
Now it's all now together for the end process, right? Oh, so everything just one day. Yeah.
Well, the 30th, I think it was initially the 30th, but then I realized that the 30th is a Monday, and you guys have class on a Tuesday, so we made the 1st of April, and that's not a joke.
We're writing it based on the list as well.
Oh my goodness, that might be a joke.
I already asked that one about it.
Welcome for those who've joined already. We'll just taking our time to get everybody. There's quite a big group. All the joint groups, the two BCM groups and the one BCDM group. Let's just get the whole of the north of Gauteng, and especially our students who are on campus at Centurion on board. And please, Anik, Marcus, mute yourselves. We don't want to listen to your private conversations, please. Or don't. Or don't. Maybe we can listen to your conversation and later on have some fun with it. No, I'm joking. Morning, everybody. Hi, Ruan. Welcome. How's everybody doing? Survived the weekend? Finding your feet now. We're into week 4, and all of us still here? All of us still enthusiastic, or is the new rat race of being back in the swing of second year studies getting to you? You're still coping, you're still good. It's a reasonable percentage of attendance. I'm going to use the last 5 minutes before we break just to take attendance. I'm not going to do it now. Okay. I get you, Lyndall. Thank you very much. Yes. Right. Anyone who wants to has a specific question that they want to ask at this stage? Nothing? You all good? We'll look forward to us starting with a new chapter, which would be chapter 5, if I'm correct. Chapter 5 is on the references and the reference groups, if memory serves me correctly. So let's try and get that on the screen for you guys and share that images with you. Reference groups and social class. Very interesting. Just prior to the session starting, we had a chat again about social class, specifically referring to the royal family and their issues. I do believe, however, that was in the news yesterday. I'm not sure if any of you saw. I know that it's almost a year now. I'm not exactly sure about the date that George Floyd was killed in America, and that sort of sparked the whole Black Lives Matter campaign that is very evident at the moment all over. And it's quite interesting. And the reason why I start off with this is you'll see as we progress through the chapter that there's 4 categories of major categories of reference groups, and in total there's 16 types of reference groups that marketers over years have identified, and they play such an important role on influencing the decisions that consumers take. I mean, for instance, I know that I'm not exactly sure. Was that football player on the weekend that said he's not. Oh yes, yes. Zara actually said that he's not going down on his knee. Um, yeah, there's other ways of showing your support for the cause, and um, I think it's important to realize the impact, and sometimes the impact of especially celebrities and sports stars, their behavior, how it impacts on the decisions that we take. Because I could have shared the story with you. I'm not sure if I have, but a couple of years ago, when I was still at my previous college and we were doing some coaching at school, um, I made it very clear after the first couple of sessions that the coaches must be very careful how they dress. Yes, we have a specific dress code and for uniformity, but especially any accessories, watches, headbands, whatever they use, because 7, 8, 9-year-olds copy their coaches. I had an incident where one of my coaches, because he had very long hair, um, he wore a sweatband, and within the first week, almost everybody in the group that he coached, the 7-year-olds on the 8th rugby team, were wearing sweatbands at practice because they were copying the coach. So at certain phases in your life, your reference groups, the reference groups that you aspire to belong to, or the reference groups that you use um, to to assist you when making decisions as to buying something or not, play such an important role. And I think that's um, it's very clear. It was clear to me again yesterday, because I know that after the incident with George Floyd last year, and now recently with Meghan and Harry, coming out to say that there is definitely racism amongst the royal family, without really accusing anybody in particular. There was um, a very controversial, um, publication in France brought out a comic, or animated comic, was published on their front page with the Queen kneeling over Meghan with her knee on her throat, and Meghan saying, "I can't breathe." Basically, um, yeah, exactly what happened to George Floyd a year ago. And there's obviously people have different opinions about the matter. Some say it's in bad taste, and actually the whole George Floyd incident is negatively affected by this. And of course, hi Warren, hi guys. There's just some latecomers here who joined us in class. But yeah, you'll see as we progress, the different reference groups that exist and the influence they have specifically on the behavior of the consumer is quite significant. What we're going to try and achieve in this chapter, obviously, then is to ensure that um, we define what a reference group is in broader terms. We try and differentiate between the different ones, and I already said there are 4 main categories and then 16 groups in total. So each of the 4 main categories have 2 um, subcategories, basically. Um, what is social class? We'll get to that tomorrow. No, we'll get to that in on Thursday. Today we'll just deal with reference groups, and the impact that reference groups have, and how important reference groups are to marketers. Why is it important, and what's the impact that the reference group can have on the buying decision of the consumer? Okay, if we progress to the next slide, in the broadest terms possible, a reference group is nothing more than a group of people who have some persuasive impact on the buying decision of their friends or other members of the same reference group as they have. Um, Most often because they have a certain credibility or believability within the group that they are part of. If you buy a car for the first time in your life, but your dad has bought new vehicles since you can remember every second year, then he would be somebody that you would definitely approach for guidance, he's not going to make the final decision for you. But obviously, that would be somebody, because family is a reference group in themselves, a very formal one, because there's some structure in it. But it definitely is somebody that you have, that in your opinion carries some expert or experience on the majority of subject matters that affect your specific reference group, and they carry some credibility. So in other words, if you ask a specific individual that you look up to if it's a good idea, let me just get Janice on board as well, if it's a good idea to buy a particular product or not, you would do so because you value the opinion of that individual, and based on their feedback, it will definitely have a huge impact on your final decision as to buying a product or not. It is probably wise to use individuals that you not just trust their opinions, but also that you know have experience of that particular item that you are considering to purchase. One of the main reasons why reference groups have such a huge impact on decisions consumers take is because you associate yourself with a specific reference group, and you socialize a lot with that group. So obviously, you almost later on dress alike. You share certain basic needs, and therefore the manner in which you satisfy those needs or want those needs satisfied is also rather similar. Your behavior, it's not just your buying behavior that's rather similar, it's also your social behavior that's similar in a particular reference group. Right. We'll see that once we get to the different types of reference groups, that they have very distinctive norms of behavior. In other words, if you're in a particular group, you have nothing on you. I see you right in front of me and heard those brands that is well known, and yeah, so people will definitely, or iPhones for that matter. If your friends have iPhones, you need. Excuse me. Just mute yourselves. We don't want to listen to your private conversations, please. It's disrupting the session. Thank you. So yeah, we do tend to copy the members of our reference group, and as I said, because we have the same kind of needs. The word peer pressure is also familiar to you. That's also one of the dangers, however, of trying to copy everybody else in your reference group, because you're under pressure to have the new iPhone, but your budget and your parents' budget just doesn't allow it. So there, and we'll deal with that in later chapters, and we have addressed some of it in some of the previous chapters. There, your values and beliefs now all of a sudden also play a very important part. You've got to now decide, is this the right group for me or not? Am I going to give in to the pressure? And because it can lead to bad habits. You take on, you make bad decisions just to ensure that you can actually keep up with the specific norms of behavior that reference group have set. You need to be comfortable. And as I said, yeah, there are 16 different types of reference groups that marketers have identified over years, and I'm pretty sure you'll find the right one. And that's probably the toughest part for any consumer, to ensure that they are affiliated to the right reference group. That unfortunately, life is not that easy, and you are going to make bad decisions, as long as you don't blame it on your reference group. and as long as you just learn from it. But the impact of a reference group on your behavior and your decisions as a consumer is enormous. Um, the impact that a reference group would have on the behavior and specifically the buying behavior of a consumer is definitely um, um, linked to the type of product that you are considering to buy. Obviously, if it's a more expensive item like um, the Merc on the bottom right side, that image of that vehicle, it's an expensive decision. It's not the bread and milk that you're going to buy, which is an image on the right hand side, on the left hand side of the slide. So the more important the decision is that you need to take, the greater, the stronger the influence of the reference group would be. You're not going to ask your friends for advice on what bread to buy, what milk to buy. You're going to go with, I mean, they are very similar. There are not too many differences between different brands of bread. So very often you will just buy what you are used to. And if you're used to a particular brand because that's what your parents bought, bread is bread. Unless um, you are familiar with the European trends, because their bread is something, especially in Germany and Holland and those places, in Belgium. Um, Good bread is an art. But if you're looking at your generic purchases that you do on a daily basis, your Dunes or your Albany bread or whatever, that's Sasco. I mean, there's not, the ingredients are the same, and the attributes are very much the same, and the taste is very much the same. So you're not going to be asking your friends for advice on that. But if it comes to buying a 500,000 rand vehicle, well, if that vehicle goes for 500,000, I'll buy it tomorrow. I'll go borrow the money because that's cheap. It's probably closer to 1 million. But there, you will definitely use the so-called experts, the people you look up to, the people whose opinions you trust and value. They are definitely going to play a more important role in you making a decision um, of that magnitude. It's quite clear as well, and from some of the examples that we've used thus far today, that the reference group's influence is also stronger when it comes to branded items. I know my son, for instance, is maybe I'm not sure. My parents never um, made me conscious of specific brands, and I grew up like that. So maybe it is rubbed off on my children as well. But they're not very brand conscious. As a matter of fact, I mean, I made the mistake once to buy a very nice branded, an expensive branded item when I was overseas for one of my sons, and he actually almost never wore it. And I said to him one day, I mean, that is, it's not a comfortable item. Um, that's more important when it comes to clothing. But then we do know that for some people, and ladies know, um, it's not it's not aimed at you specifically, but we know that fashion has no pain, or knows no pain. Sometimes, yeah, you wonder certain items, that certain garments that people wear. Watched a bit of the Grammys last night as well, and I thought, oh my word, you cannot be comfortable in that particular dress.
So which one did you see?
It was that one with that massive, almost head. Um,
I never.
hey?
Never Cyrus. So did you see the one that was like that was almost like a red Peruvian outfit of those
Yes.
that went down like that and then raised them?
Yeah, I honestly.
Kind of like David Stars.
Well, we're talking about the Grammys and some of the sites that we've seen last night. And yeah,
So did you see Billie Eilish? Then she wore like a tracksuit with a matching mask and green.
And the green hair, yeah. But well, that's
But that is
we are familiar. That's the image.
yeah.
We are familiar with that image. That fits. But then usually, I sometimes with events like this, I'm astounded at people who normally dress very fashionably, go total boss and off the chart, and they try and be something that they're not. Um, I don't know, to make a statement or not. Well, at least win something then, so that you can actually make a statement and get on the stage and explain your outfit. Or yeah, but I'm just sometimes astounded. But yes, again, it's a and the reason why I've sort of used that as an example is how many teenagers, how many young adults who are fashion conscious and who I'm not going to now all of a sudden, yeah, that's what my idol wore last night. Okay, and they're going to start copying that. And I think that's why very often, yeah, and I'm not sure if it's ever going to return to normal, but your traditional matric dances and your proms, like in America, I mean, very often that becomes a fashion show more than anything else. But again, it's a it's testimony to the to specifically the impact that your reference groups or the reference groups have on the members that's associated with a particular reference group, and can use impact. And that's why it's important that marketers understand um, the the impact that reference groups have on consumer decision making. I'm not a brand conscious individual, to be honest with you. I'll wear what's comfortable. It has to be comfortable with obviously the emphasis on that. You sometimes go to the beach over, and yeah, I know people let it go over the summer period because they've worked hard for the year. They think they can relax and they are entitled to relax. But then some of those fashions, mm-mm. Crocs and Speedos, for instance, they never go together, regardless. They never have, and they never should. Um, I believe Crocs are back. Crocs are very, very back.
So Balenciaga came out with those platform props. So it's like about that high with a cup on top. I would imagine for that would be that's why.
We're talking about Crocs and Crocs. People, what's your opinion on this? Because I think the issue at the end of the day, why was there a market for Crocs in the first place? Because they were comfortable, and then all of a sudden it took a very sharp left. And
I mean, what other shoe can you spot?
You get
flippers.
When you go into the river at the burger.
You wear flippers, and nowadays you don't because there's Crocs in them. Real Crocs, not shoes.
Yes.
Yes, and we don't know how many. No, I tell you what, those that's evidence that of evolution. Yep. Right. Every particular society have successful individuals that they look up to. I know that the up-and-coming black consumer market in South Africa is very much influenced by successful role models and people who are successful in business. Strangely enough, and it must be because of many years of oppression. I would like to. I'm not a subject on this matter. I'm a subject expert on this matter. I would like to have any input from somebody who finds themselves in that particular category. But I'm pretty sure that I'm definitely more inspired by somebody who's been successful in business, um, more so than somebody who's been successful in as a movie star or a sports celebrity, because to me it's about the sustainability, and we all know that most of our artists, actors, most of our sports celebrities, they have very short careers, and that's why they try and cash in as much as they can in a very short period of time. Business, unfortunately, it's about it's a bit of a long-term approach. I haven't heard of too many businessmen who um, there are obviously examples of businessmen who or business people who have been very successful with a product or a brand very quickly, and then they disappeared, almost like your one-hit wonders. But I think in business, there's a lot of sustainability required. Kaylee is in the waiting room, so let's just let Kaylee um, admit it as well. But I have, from everybody that I could probably find, and um, it changes almost on an annual basis. Um, those are very successful individuals, all of them. Patrice Motsepe, I believe, is now also the president of CAF, football in Africa. Um, First South African to be elected as president of the CAF. But he's made his money on the mines, and he also, jointly with Mr. Johan Rupert at the bottom, who's well known for Remgro, and especially enrichment in Europe, expensive jewelry, tobacco. That's how they made their money over years, and they've sustained to be successful in it. And I think mostly because they're very innovative. Mr. Rupert and Patrice Motsepe now jointly own 74% of the Blue Bulls rugby as well. Um, and I like to see that, because I think in general sport, if they want to survive, um, they have to change and get private investors involved. It's been There are some sports, and there are sports in South Africa that have not, who are reluctant to do that, and I think the reluctancy lies more more as a result of the power that you're going to relinquish in the process. But I think if the model has proven itself over years as a successful business model, um, amongst many football clubs. I don't think Man United and Barcelona and these teams, Real Madrid, would have been financially as strong as a stronger brand as they are at the moment if there wasn't um, private investors involved at all. Um, we try and copy successful people. We like to see people being successful. We like to obviously um, take to heart some of the advice that they give. Interestingly enough, you know who Matthew McConaughey is? The actor, yes. Is actually a Texan by birth. And I think if you've seen any of his movies, I mean, there's quite a strong Texan accent in the movies. I believe that, and if any of you have searched the internet for motivational um, speeches, his name pops up quite regularly. Not too many people know that he actually is a professor in communication. He's well educated, and he's quite popular, giving talks at graduations, and giving motivational speeches to schools and universities. He's now chucked his name in the hat to be the next governor of Texas. He's going to go into politics apparently next year when the current governor's term finishes. It'll be interesting because if you've never heard him talk, he's quite well versed. He I can easily see that people can listen to him because he talks with conviction, and obviously has very strong opinions about important issues. But just interesting, yeah. Matthew McConaughey now pulling a Arnold Schwarzenegger on us. Um, must always say, yeah, what happens to retired sportsmen? What do they become? I want to also ask the question, what's happening to retired actors, or actors who reach the end of their careers. They apparently go into politics. I'm quickly just going to show you the image on the screen, which you'll find. I don't have my manual in front of me to give you the exact page. Yes, Warren.
So can I just ask a question?
Of course you can.
Um, when I've been reading through the textbook and
Yes.
stuff, there's been quite a few like blinds, market, like segregation type, not segregation, but like groups
Mm-hmm.
that you can market to. But like the type of like a name given to the groups are like so blunt. Is that something common in marketing? Like for example, like the black consumer market
Yes.
and the LGBTQ market and things like that. Like, is that like something that's like in like defining crowd marketing? That's very like blunt.
Yeah, you do.
Because like the thing is, if you think about it, that is blunt. It's like yeah,
I think it's very often the majority of those categorizations that's done is done to be descriptive of the particular group. There's no politically correct or incorrect way of stating it, because if we're talking about the black consumer group, if I use those words, you're quite clear on who the market segment is. Okay, within that group, obviously there could be different subgroups, and we've seen it in the previous chapter on subcultures. Um, and yeah, it is very much so. And you'll see when we look at, you can see on the image on the screen about your different categories. It's very descriptive. A formal reference group, um, there's structure in it. It says what it says. It's formal. Informal means they're slightly more relaxed. There's no specific rules or guidelines. We'll have a look at the different examples and if it makes sense. But yeah, the bluntness about terminology used to describe a specific market segment is very much is very much I would say commercial industry related, because it there's no beating about the bush, and especially because you cannot be too vague with your terminology and your descriptions. Otherwise, it opens that gray area that, like, all right, where do these consumers fall? We're not exactly sure in which group. You need to, especially in marketing, be very specific about that group, even the groups within the group, because
so
uh,
you can target that exact market
exactly.
and not what you think that market.
See, not all the businesses are Coca-Cola and Apple and Microsoft that basically says, well, this is the products that we have. Choose one. And they will never have products in stock or stocked up that they have to get rid of because nobody bought it. People will buy it. That's their whole mass market, mass production approach that they have. But because they are very established and probably all three that I've mentioned is top 10 um, um, globally for many years now as most valued brands. Um, but we also have to realize that those businesses are not the only ones who are in business. The majority of businesses are smaller entrepreneurial businesses whose margins are much smaller, so they cannot afford to be unsure who their market is. And therefore, yes, there is a very specific bluntness about describing a market segment, just for clarity more than anything else.
And so that is under communication.
Yes, especially because all the different market segments use different platforms, different social media platforms to access the information. I mean, if any of you, if I'm a businessman who haven't just started a business and I want to communicate to any of you, if I use Facebook, I'll probably get one hit out of the entire group if I'm lucky. If I market that to your parents, I'll get a higher strike rate because that's the medium that the baby boomers and older generation actually use. You guys are, some of you millennials and some of you are Gen Zs. You want instant information now. Um, it's got to happen now. You want to be the person who tells the next person, did you hear this? You don't want to be told. You don't want to be the receiver. You want to be the person who's actually the first to know it. It's very challenging for marketers nowadays because information is almost available instantaneous. But also very important, and we'll see that later on in later chapters when we deal with the different demographics and gender and age, and that Gen Zs and millennials are not they're very brand conscious, but they're not very loyal to a particular brand. They'll change to a different brand if it's a better deal, just like that. It's also evident in the employment trends amongst that particular generation. You stay in the same industry, but you're not as loyal as an employee of 25 years ago who's been working for the company for 30 years and now gets a golden watch and a handshake and say thank you very much on your for what you've done for the company. Enjoy your retirement. Millennials and Gen Zs will drop a job for another one if it pays better. They're loyal to the profession, but not to a specific company. And there's nothing wrong with it, because I mean, all the decisions that you've been used to take your whole life are quick ones. Not always the right ones, but people who take more time to make a decision can also make a wrong decision. It's just in your nature, because that's how you've been born with a tablet in the one hand and a cell phone in the other. I mean, your parents and their parents didn't even know. It was quite interesting what they said the other day, and I'll sort of wrap up the session with that. The different in the 90s. Everybody was going, I mean, that's before your time, but in the 90s, towards the end of the 90s, people were frantic about, year 2000 is just around the corner. That's when the world's going to end. That was the one group. The other was, okay, right. So if it doesn't end, what will we see in future? They were doing some predictions on different levels. And one of the things that actually have come true in the time that they said would be is the MRA scans that you actually can take, because that wasn't common in the 90s. They got the predictions on how vehicles, the shapes of vehicles would be now in 2020 rather accurately, apart from the fact that they believed that it would be flying, yes, not just flying, but they will also be no drivers. Exactly, but it's not the norm. That was seen as the norm 30 years ago when they did future predictions. So some of it do come true in the time that, and some of them are, most of it is very realistic. I think what they predicted for the, now I've got to remember correctly, what they predicted for the next 10 years, that is reasonably believable. Well, now one that comes to mind. This is not believable, but it's not impossible, because until it happens, it's unbelievable. But then it happens, and then everybody says, "Okay, well, that's fine. We saw that coming." They reckon that it would be in the next 10 years possible, because of medical research, to implant a chip in you that regulates the needs that your body have. So in other words, you get a migraine, the chip identifies you've got a headache, and they will send paracetamol into your system, release it into your system, so you don't have to take any pills. It's a bit far-fetched, but hey, usually when they say, we know that if it's been in a movie, it's probably possible to happen in real life as well, within a specific time. But that's a bit far-fetched. Just not to interrupt the session abruptly, I'm going to end the session now. Take a quick break, get yourself a cup of coffee, some water, and we'll resume after the break. Thanks, everybody.